Spider-Man 2 is a movie that, when I rewatch it several times, I feel like there's like three themes that we can use it to connect our faith, if you remember the movie. And I feel like the first one I really need to go over is, of course, responsibility. And we all know that classic quote by Uncle Ben. He says it in 2 times from the first movie and even the second movie. With great power comes great responsibility. And you know, Peter has this gift of being a Spider-Man, and he's using this gift to help the people of New York to serve one another. And it kind of reminded me of when I was in the Sanctify retreat, when we talked about Mary's heart being pure by God, because it's a sign for her. Well, if you think about it, it's kind of like, you know, the spider biting Peter. It's a bit Peter for a reason, so he could serve one another, just like what the spider wanted him to do. So basically, like, I feel like Peter in this movie represents the theme of responsibility. And I found some really, really good quotes into it, if I can get into the next slide. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's very grace. Peter chapter 4, verse 10. And it's just like, you know, the word gift. It's very common, you know. This is my gift, my curse. Who am I? I'm Spider-Man. That was from the first movie. And don't forget Doc Ock's quote, just like St. Peter's quote, intelligence is not a privilege, it's a gift, and you use it for the good of mankind. And it really inspired me that Doc Ock said that to Peter before he became the bad guy. And when Doc Ock became the bad guy, Peter decided to use that again to help Doc Ock out, to see what he can do to help others. And he did so in saving New York City. Now, the second theme that's really big for me is sacrifice. And for me, Spider-Man 2, its grand theme is sacrifice. And the thing is that Peter makes so many sacrifices in this movie. And there are a lot of scenes in it, you know, the train scene where he does that, you know, stopping the robbers, so and that prohibits him from getting to MJ's play. He sacrificed, you know, saving the kids in the beginning of the movie because, you know, it was the right thing instead of getting the pizzas on time, but unfortunately it gets to him losing his job. And also, don't forget that burning building scene, and it proved that even if you're not Spider-Man, even if you're just Peter Parker, you can save someone in danger as long as you make that big sacrifice. And, you know, it just really inspires me that this movie does show a lot of sacrifice. And it said, and it basically also shows that, you know, sacrifice is very grand, and it strengthens our love and motivation for others. And, you know, one image I found really cool is that, you know, Peter, you know, trying to look for a suit, but it's almost like, you know, when we wear the necklace with a Mary protecting us or Jesus on the cross. And of course, I really love this picture where, you know, Peter is carrying it, and it reminded me of Jesus carrying the cross, you know. And also, sacrifice is never easy. It's really never easy for all of us. And of course, was not easy for our villain Doc Ock, because Doc Ock wasn't really a villain of like, I want to take over the world. He just wanted to create this renewable energy, but he found out that it wasn't doing any good. So basically, he had to give up his dream of making that in order to, you know, sacrifice his own life. And that's the reason why Doc Ock, even the villain, made his own sacrifice. And, you know, we can always be inspired by what people tell us, and that's what I find really cool. And, you know, seeing Doc Ock, you know, sacrificing his own life. And I also found some really good quotes about it, you know. And actually, before I do that, I need to talk about the train scene. And the train scene, I think, is really, really cool because it actually goes with Luciana's talk from Sanctify. So, the train scene, cool fight, wasn't it? So, I remember Luciana talked about trust, surrender, and cheer. Well, in that scene where Peter takes off his mask and he realizes the train is going at maximum, Peter surrenders himself to save everybody. He finds out that he needs to do something in order to save the people of New York in that train. And then basically, he spreads his arm, gets all of the webs, and does it kind of like Jesus on the cross. And, you know, that symbolism, sure, it might be cliche in films, you know, when we all laughed at that scene and saw Tobey Maguire do, but to me, just that scene of, like, Peter just, you know, having his arms out, saving everybody, was probably the most powerful theme or scene. And another thing that I'd like to tell is it also reminded me of Victor's talk. saying that your sin is not bigger than God's love for you. And that's what Peter represents, is that his love for New York is really bigger than all the people that have been trashing him in his life. It did not stop him from wanting to be Spider-Man and doing the right thing. And it also reminded me of Regina's talk, is that we must let the cross be divine wisdom, and we must carry the cross wherever. And it's kind of like where after Peter uses all of his muscles in saving everybody, you know, everyone carrying him, kind of like saying that we all must carry the cross to spread the word. And of course, here are some quotes, you know, and do not forget to do good and to share with others, for such sacrifices God is pleased. And of course, one of my favorite quotes from Spider-Man 2 was when Aunt May tells Peter that, you know, sometimes we just have to give up the things we want the most, including our dreams. And I thought that was just really, really, really empowering when Aunt May said that, hey, the world needs Spider-Man. How come he's gone away? And it's kind of like that hint of that Peter might be Spider-Man, maybe not. And it was a great mystery for all the characters in Spider-Man. And joy through suffering. I actually want to start off with the quotes of joy through suffering, because to talk about it, I believe it's perfect to talk about the quotes. After you have another one from St. Peter, wow, Peter Parker really is a saint. After you have suffered for a little while, the God of all grace, who has called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself restore you, secure you, strengthen you, and establish you. Am I not supposed to have what I want, what I need? What am I supposed to do? And those are things that, you know, we ask ourselves every single day about how come we're facing these really awful things in our life, and how come we're not getting all the things we want, you know, when we suffer, you know? And, you know, that scene where he tells Uncle Ben in his dream, I'm Peter Parker, I'm Spider-Man no more. And if you haven't been listening, actually listen to the songs in the movie. Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head is also an example of joy through suffering, because you're walking through the rain, but you're not complaining about it, especially when Peter just trips, you know, and gets his wheel destroyed. Hey, you fuck, sorry. And of course, the song where Peter was about to go to MJ's play, Hold On, because, you know, when you listen to that song, it's really about, you know, Peter's identity. You tried to be someone, but you forgot who you are. So I feel like those are really good quotes for joy through suffering, especially for the character of Peter Parker. And probably, for me, I saved this last because I feel like joy through suffering is probably the most thing that really got Peter Parker into this movie. Like what I said, he goes through every single trouble that we all go through, you know. He's late for classes, he's failing, he loses his job, he has money issues. And when you watch this is not just thing like, oh my goodness, do only superheroes go through this? It proves that, you know, everyone goes through it. I mean, how many times have you slipped in school? How many times were you late for something? How many times have you, like, messed up on your relationship and you have issues with that person? Well, also, it's trying to prove that, you know, we're not alone in this. Peter Parker goes through it as well. So even if this film doesn't feature that much Spider-Man action, it just focuses on the character of Peter Parker. And that was basically the biggest responsibility of what Sam Raimi and the writers did for the character of Spider-Man, is to make him relatable. He's not just supposed to be like, he's a cool guy because he has spider powers. I mean, he can mess up, he makes mistakes, and don't we all make mistakes, guys?
Yeah.
And actually, there's also another thing I need to show y'all. It's the purpose of what Stan Lee did in creating the character of Spider-Man. And I really, really miss Stan Lee because he created all of our favorite superheroes, including your Captain America. And this was from a video called, this is from a video from a guy who's talking about all the Spider-Man movies. And it's from a YouTube channel called High Top Films. And you might laugh at me for this, but I think the guy in this video sounds like Jonathan. That's pretty good.
Is us. His entire purpose as a character was to be relatable to the reader, a dorky, nerdy outcast with a good heart.
I won't make him the handsomest guy in the world or the strongest. I won't make him rich. He'll have money worries. I can relate to that because I had money problems in those days. I said he won't be that popular. I mean, it's not easy for him to get a girl. He has to worry about getting dates. And I figured that most of the kids or the teenagers or the young adults who read those stories would be able to relate to that. Because no, life isn't easy for anybody, really.
So yeah, and basically is that after all the three themes I presented, I'm just really happy that my love and passion for Spider-Man is very similar to like my faith. And basically my friend said that how come you're able to connect, you know, Spider-Man with Jesus, you know? And my friend goes like, I feel like it's probably like a communication about how God communicates through you. Sure, Spider-Man is just made by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko and all the other people from Marvel, but I feel like they've been given a gift from God that it was their responsibility to make a character who we can all relate to, who is pretty cool. And that's why I'm very thankful for, you know, the gifts that Stan Lee and Steve Ditko have done, especially with Marvel Comics. And a thing I like to say is that, like what I said, although Peter Parker is just a comic book character, we can see Jesus through him because of his courage, his courageousness, bravery, and his love for others. Just like what I said, his love is greater than all the sins. And Spider-Man he may not be a lord or a saint, but he will do anything to help others. And just seeing someone like Spider-Man putting his life on the line, helping others, even if no matter what the cost may be, that's where I see someone like Jesus, just being there for you, giving you a touch, a healing touch, and that's what I find really cool. And there's another cool thing that my friend said, that we want Peter Parker to be us in our lives. We don't want someone to idolize, and that's what I find beautiful about Peter Parker, what I said, is that we want Peter Parker to be us. He's not supposed to be the guy that we idolize, but someone that we can all relate to. And like what I said, he is a symbol of responsible love, even if the world turns back on him.
I won't make a...
Sorry, guys. Oh my goodness. Alright, so for a discussion for everybody, how can y'all apply Spider-Man's two themes of responsibility, sacrifice, and joy through suffering, and your faith in Christ? Anybody? This is a discussion question.